Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, don't you love it when you're getting into a political debate and somebody just says the silent part out loud? You know, that part that really is their true motivation. You've known it for years. They keep denying it, and then eventually out it comes, and you're like, aha, I got that. And you know, there's actually something to be said about spontaneous statements. Spontaneous statements are inherently reliable. As a matter of fact, if you want to geek out on the rules of evidence, you'll see that there's a lot of exceptions to the hearsay rule based upon the spontaneity of that statement. We're going to tie that into gun registries today because, well, there's lots of reasons not to like gun registries. The main one is if you go back and you look into history, you'll see that anytime there's a gun registry, it led to gun confiscation. And anytime that gun confiscation occurred, it was not good for those particular citizens. Now, the first step, of course, to gun confiscation is to know where exactly are all the guns. It would make it much easier, wouldn't it? Well, maybe that's exactly what they've been doing all along. Will probably not come as a shock to some of you, but should be offensive to all of you. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, yes, they are preparing to disarm you and will violate federal law to do it. Okay, before we get going too far down the road we're going down, proud to announce that this video is being brought to you by Right to Bear. That's right, legal protection for self-protection. Listen, good lawyers aren't cheap, cheap lawyers aren't good. You're not truly prepared unless you have Right to Bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com. Okay, here's what we're talking about today. We're talking about gun registries. Do they exist? Well, gun registries are a little bit like Bigfoot because the experts will tell you that Bigfoot doesn't exist, but there sure seems to be an awful lot of evidence to suggest there might be something out there. Now, gun registries are kind of the same thing because government will sit there and almost always say, no, we have no gun registry. I mean, yes, we've been collecting data on firearms, and yes, we've been digitally converting that data, and yes, we've been putting it into a searchable database, and we've been doing it on a federal level, and states have been doing that on a state level, and some municipalities have been doing it on a municipal level, but no, there is no gun registry at all, right? Well, if we take a look at what happened before Congress during a committee hearing, enter Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman of the state of New Jersey, a state not known particularly for loving on the 2A. But during a committee hearing, Representative Watson Coleman stated the following.
I think it was a wonderful idea that we have a registry of every gun that is owned by a civilian in the United States of America, because then we could have perhaps less killings in our neighborhoods, less killings at our supermarkets, less killings at our concerts, less killings, period, in the United States of America. And when we talk about what the government has no right to tell us whether or not we can have guns, but the government has a right to tell us whether or not we can have a baby. This is absurd, and it is hypocritical, and it is counterproductive. And I think if we had less guns in the hands of people in this country, we'd have a safer community, from the most densely populated poor community to the most affluent. I yield back.
Okay, wait. Did she just say gun registry? And it's good to know where all the guns are. Okay, all right. Well, let's break that down. There are two things that I want to communicate to the good representative and anyone else who is demented in their mind like that as well. Number one, the first thing that is missing from every single gun registry is all the illegally possessed and illegally owned firearms. See, you'll have a list of all the lawful and responsible gun owners, but last time I checked Department of Justice statistics, they're not the ones that are actually committing the gun crime. So the one core problem that you have, if you actually wanted to solve it, you're not collecting that data because, well, shockingly, criminals are not going to register their firearms. The second thing, and perhaps the whole premise of this video, Representative Watson Coleman, is you see, actually a gun registry would be in violation of federal law, because now enter the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986, piece of legislation signed into law by President Ronald Reagan. It actually amended the Gun Control Act of 1968. Now, large swaths of the Firearm Owners Protection Act also dealt with new record keeping as databases were becoming more and more modernized and the ability to communicate between databases was growing. The ATF encouraged a lot more records to be created and kept. And so there's a large amount of this legislation that created all sorts of new records. Now, there was huge pushback during the negotiations on this bill, which took place between the Reagan administration as well as Tip O'Neill, who was then the Speaker of the House out of Massachusetts. And between the NRA and some other very powerful groups, as well as a lot of conservative legislators, they were concerned that, hey, you're creating all of these records, but they're going to turn this into an unlawful database and they're going to use this to round up the guns someday. A very legitimate concern because it was based on what we've all read in our history books. So there was a compromise. And President Reagan was very, very adamant that he would not sign this into legislation unless this compromise was achieved. And that was the creation of 18 United States Code Section 926, which language is very clear, specifically reads, "No such rule or regulation prescribed after the date of the enactment of the Firearm Owners Protection Act may require that records required to be maintained under this chapter or any portion of the contents of such records be recorded at or transferred to a facility owned, managed, or controlled by the United States or any state or any political subdivision thereof, nor that any system of registration of firearms, firearm owners, or firearm transactions or dispositions be established." Now, I know many of you are saying, well, that law has been violated 1,000 times. Exhibit A, the FOID card in the state of Illinois. Exhibit B, well, the firearm mandatory registration of assault weapons, which also occurred in the state of Illinois. But, hey, the Supreme Court doesn't want to get to that yet, right, folks? But what this law does make clear is that the federal government, nor any state, nor any local government can use government resources to create a searchable database of gun registries. That is, that they cannot create a database where they can tell where all the guns are and who has the firearms. Now, we know, or at least we have strong belief, that of course this is exactly what has occurred. But now we have an elected United States House of Representatives on the record as stating not only do we have a federal gun registry, but that it's a good thing. Listen, you don't have to take my word for it. All you got to do is pick up a history book and take a look at any time a tyrannical regime was instilled in control of people. The first thing they did was disarm the citizenry. And the best way in which you can disarm a citizenry is to know where to start looking. Listen, we're going to keep close eye on this, see if there's any follow-up. It would be really nice if somebody in the New Jersey media who has access to the representative could ask some follow-up questions. I would be fascinated to know exactly what it was she was talking about. If you got any more questions about gun registries or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. Maybe you got an idea for a video that we should be doing around here. If you do, click on that link right there, because candidly, most of the good ideas we have here aren't really our ideas at all. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.